TMF listeners, ready to level up your career game? This podcast is brought to you by Granular Level, your ultimate TMF professionals. Need a killer CV? A magnetic LinkedIn profile? Eager to learn the eTMF or expert advice on mock interviews? Don't just dream it, achieve it with Granular Level. Let's craft your success story together. Welcome to the TMF Daily podcast, the ultimate destination for all things trial master file related, where we uncover industry secrets and insights to help you thrive in the TMF industry. I'm your host, Nicole Palmer, and today we're diving deep into the realm of trial master files with none other than the legendary Mitch Hilby. If you're looking to level up your knowledge and dominate the clinical research scene, you're in the right place. Our guest today isn't just your average clinical research professional. He's a trailblazer, a disruptor, and a force to be reckoned with. Mitch has been making waves since he stepped foot into the industry back in 2005, and his impact is felt far and wide, from podcast appearances to panel discussions at top-tier conferences. Mitch's voice resonates across the clinical research industry. His expertise spans a multitude of therapeutic areas from oncology to autoimmune diseases, women's health to rare disease, and beyond. So buckle up and get ready for an electrifying conversation filled with insights, inspiration, and maybe a few surprises along the way. Whether you're a seasoned clinical research professional or just starting out in the industry, this episode is guaranteed to leave you feeling empowered and ready to conquer the TMF. Mitch, welcome to the TMF Daily podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And that intro is so overwhelming. Thank you.
You deserve it. You've earned it. So let's just get right into it. You were exposed to clinical research very early on with your mom working in clinical research. So let's just talk about your first role in clinical research. You were an independent contractor. How's that happen?
Well, I mean, I'm honest about it. Nepotism. It's a unique opportunity, and some of us are very fortunate to have opportunities like that. There's family in the industry or close friends who are involved in the industry, and they bring people in. I've seen it personally at so many research sites when I was traveling as a CRA, where someone's in for recruiting or calling and screening patients and managing the site's social media presence, whatever it may be. It's like, yep, this is the daughter or the son of the site director, and that was similar to my situation. My mom wore many hats in the industry and had been involved in healthcare and oncology for decades. So my senior year of high school is really when she got me more involved, because I was interested in medicine myself. There's other family conditions and things that I found myself very, very curious about, and doing, my own independent research and reviewing articles online, finding whatever I could. And she saw that spark in me. So she brought me in to kind of work more or less as what you would think like a CTA would kind of do. Maybe a little bit smaller scale, but it was putting together, regulatory binders and shipping them to sites.
Paper.
Yeah, it was all paper back then too. It doesn't sound that long ago, but then like when I look back, I'm like, wow, it is that long ago, and I'm definitely feel like I'm getting older and older. All paper all the time, and printing tons and tons of documents, putting them all together.
It's time consuming.
It is terribly time consuming, and that's exactly why that's needed. Those types of roles, they're so pivotal. Even today, there's companies and services that kind of streamline that process now. But still, we'll reach out to CTAs and say, hey, can we ship this site documents, or can we ship them this site binders? And maybe it's mini protocols or whatever it may be. There's always someone behind the scenes that has to do that work. So that's really how I started, and it progressed into doing AE Conmed cross checks. So really getting into like a degree of data management kind of activities, quasi monitoring, if you will. And then it just continued to evolve and progress over the years.
So were you working really closely with a CRA in that role, being like the CTA? Or are you more administrative?
So it's definitely more administrative, but there was a lot of interaction I did have and built relationships with some of the CRAs that she worked with as well. So that everybody kind of became really good friends, and they would ask me for things, whether it was documents or additional binders or materials that the site may need. But I also spoke with many of the CRAs and, worked with my mom at the time to put together CRA like monitoring note worksheets. So before everything was, done on the computer with CTMS systems, you still did like Word documents for reports and had to go back and forth for review and wetting signatures. But, I had to type up these documents to kind of go through the scrubbing the protocol and like, okay, you're going to need to know the date of birth, the gender, all this other stuff, vitals, everything important to inclusion. And then you even have like, through the visits throughout the study, it's like what's the relevant information that you need to know. So then, as a CRA, they're on site and they're just jotting their notes down on their worksheets and then taking that information home, so they can track those patients as they go and have something to look at, because you couldn't get on the computer and look in an EDC because EDCs weren't there.
It's so weird to think, isn't it?
It really is.
It is. Or just even like we mailed the protocol to a site, like something so confidential. Yeah. We've come a long way. Now, like sites are like, I'm not mailing anything. I'm not going to email you this. Like we'll send it through the eTMF.
Yep.
Everything is just so different from 2005. We've just evolved so much.
Yeah, for the better, I think.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. So you have some pretty good experience working in the TMF. Like, why is it important to really have your A game when you're working in the trial master file?
Yeah, so I mean, it's important to have your A game with anything in the industry and most of what you do, because as a CRA, if you're on site, you might miss things. But with the TMF, like you're really almost like that last line of defense always. As a CRA, there's always additional people like reviewing data behind you. There's DM, you're locking a database, biostats, medical monitoring. Everybody's going to like kind of look at that data and see if there's something wrong and something missing. And even with risk-based monitoring systems, a lot of those things now are flagging stuff for CRAs or flagging stuff that then I can identify CRA might have missed, automatically finding protocol deviations, et cetera. But with the regulatory documents, those processes don't exist. They are human processes. So it, like I said, it's really there's QC, and then there's finalizing documents, and you're the last line of defense. But the regulatory aspect too is just so pivotal to ensuring that research was conducted properly.
It's all about the process and the systems and bringing the Batman to save the day.
Exactly. Yeah, the way I look at it too is, when it comes to research, as a paramedic and previously, I'm very, very passionate about patient care. So I think a lot of people get mixed up and caught up and overly involved. Not that it's not important or relevant. It's all important. But when it comes to good clinical practice and reviewing patient charts, and that's like the fun, the juicy stuff that you want to dive into, someone who's more patient minded. And a lot of people struggle with regulatory, but where the heart of research may be that patient care and how you're advancing healthcare at the end of the day, the brain that actually allows it all to function is that regulatory piece. Because without the regulatory piece, none of the rest of anything we're trying to do is actually going to work or get approved or anything.
You make a good point, because we're looking at the documents, enrollment packages, and the subjects are a number, and we're reading it. But at the end of the day, it's a real human. They're not just a number. It's not just reg docs. Like it's a real person behind all this paperwork, going through something that could be like their last hope, maybe their last string of hope to maybe help them live a little bit longer. I don't know. I think sometimes people forget that because we have the misconception working in the TMF we're like these paper pushers, electronic paper pushers. But they're people. They're real people with diseases.
Yeah, absolutely right. And while our TMF individuals may not work directly with like patient charts and you're not necessarily seeing all those, every single thing that you do in the TMF has just as significant of an impact as everyone else working in the rest of the study. And I kind of like to look at it, and I think I heard this from somewhere else sometime, and I feel really guilty for not being able to credit them for re-quoting them. But any role that you play in this industry, you need to look at it and should be looking at it like you almost are like the most important role. And you need to take your job that seriously because it is that serious. Every single role drives towards the end goal equally. There's no one piece that's, more significant than the other.
We're on the same team.
Yeah.
We all have that common goal. And I think we forget that sometimes. Like we find a mistake in the TMF and we're like, people take it personally. And it's like, no, we're on the same team. Like, this is good. We found this before the FDA did. Like, let's fix this.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, there's times where, there's many people, and I've probably gotten frustrated at times,
It's normal.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's like, man, I've sent these documents, or I feel like I've sent these documents, and that those are part of the processes too. As long as you're following your processes, and if you're sending in documents as a CRA to TMF teams, someone who can submit those and review those for you, make sure you have like a record of the documents you sent, because you should by any decent company's processes. So you can go back and reference those, or at least quickly find them and then continue to move the ball forward. But yeah, we really are a team, and you were exactly right when you brought up it's glad we caught it instead of the FDA. But it's hard because it does feel like a punishment, right? As a lead CRA, for a while, like it's one of those things you have to juggle. It's like, hey, we've got to keep up with the TMF, identifying other things that I found wrong, or hey, these protocol deviations were missed, or this was worded incredibly poorly. Can we fix it? But it's trying to just approach it as the best way as possible is always helpful. But not everybody has the best soft skills,
which is so important in clinical research. Nobody talks about that a lot, but it's almost an undervalued skill.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you don't have, what would generally be considered like a customer facing role. If you're not, like if you're CRO and you're not directly interfacing with sponsors or sites, those are obviously customer facing roles, and you want people who are going to be personable and friendly, not, Miss Trunchbull from Matilda. You don't want someone all up and angry. So.
Yeah, customer service, that should be like number one. Like, you want to work in clinical research, what's your customer service skills like?
Yeah, everybody calls it customer service, and I get it, but it really should just be like, I think, people service. It should just be nice to everyone all the time, and that would be exceptional.
Yes, I like it. Let's get rid of customer service.
Yeah, just human service.
Yes, let's call it human. Now, you and I were talking earlier about how you used to work for a mom and pop CRO. Let's talk about the benefits of working for a mom and pop CRO.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had just mentioned, working for a CRO and interfacing with customers, but CROs really scale. I think when most people hear CRO, they think of some of the really, really major ones, and it's this big, like, scary industry and impossible and really overwhelming, right?
Yeah. Or they have a bad rap.
They do often get a bad rap. And in all fairness, being in some of those roles as well, I think a lot of it is also fair at certain times. But the industry is so diverse, even when it comes to CROs, because there's so many that are really, really small, like niche CROs. And they have maybe 30 employees or less. I've met some really, really small CROs that have less than, I think, a dozen staff employees, and then contract out additional services that they've built relationships with. But the unique experience with working with, whether it's a small, sponsor, like a biotech startup, or working with a small CRO, is that you get to be so much more involved in the entire process. You learn so much more. I found the learning experiences were much more present and productive to my growth with a small organization than with a large organization. It's like the learning experiences are shoved down your throat through, you got to get in and do these constant trainings. And it's just really just like, okay, there was an update to this document because we do it every 2 weeks. Because someone has to update this document because it's their job. That's what it feels like sometimes. I know that's not the case. I've had to write SOPs and revise SOPs myself, so I know that's not the intent. But retraining on SOPs is not the same as that value you can get from those small mom and pops where you're learning everybody's role, not just your own.
And you wear so many hats.
You do, and that's where the majority of my regulatory experience really evolved. Because before that, I was based in Arizona, and the company I was with is in Northern Kentucky, and I was traveling all over the country, and sending in documents and doing review. But that was kind of it. As a standard kind of CRA regulatory experience from that perspective for that period of time, at least. But it got so much more involved when I moved, to Northern Kentucky and was in office, and I could walk 20 feet down the hall and just have a conversation and like stand by the printer and like scan documents and hang out and talk with people who are doing those initial QC reviews and uploading documents for us. And then down in the basement, where all the TMF trolls lived. We'd go down there and have conversations all the time and work on things. And I had a lot of opportunity to then take on, QC, QA kind of roles myself for the TMF. Finding issues when I was loading documents or reviewing documents and having conversations with the eTMF vendors. And it really helped me grow substantially from doing it at that small role, because everyone is involved and everyone's opinion is really impactful.
It's like you're part of the family. That's when you're there. Because when you're a traveling CRA, it's really unheard of that you're in-house at the CRO. You're usually out in the field or you're home. But it's really neat that they had you in the office because you could build the rapport with the whole team.
Yeah. Even now, a lot of in-house CRA roles are remote-based. So it's called in-house, but that just means that you don't travel. So
that's a really good point, because I think there's a misconception about that role, that in-house CRA means you're literally in-house.
Yeah, you're in office, and some may prefer that, and it is nice, and it is a great opportunity for personal and professional development, of course. But it doesn't always need to be to meet the core requirements of that position.
What's your best TMF tip?
My best TMF tip. So, let me bridge that with TMF and ISF, because they are pivotal and borderline one and the same. They share a lot of those connections.
Yeah,
collecting documents. Yeah, we're collecting documents from the ISF to store in the TMF. So, I think as a CRA, it's always beneficial to go on site and have like a well-structured investigator site file to look at. My preference is always structure your site files the way that like the DIA and in most standard eTMFs are going to be structured. I know a lot of people don't like that because there is a lot of documents, and you go with like the numbering systems and 445, like, okay, well, maybe this isn't applicable to my ISF. I get it. Maybe you can leave out those specific sections, right? But if you follow the same numbering format and at least learn where these documents should be going per the DIA model for a TMF, it's going to help everyone at that site who wants to be able to grow. And, a lot of people might be dedicated to stay at the site and want to stay at the site, and that's phenomenal. But there's a lot of people who use CRCs and regulatory positions on site to continue to grow in their career. And that is a huge, huge thing that sites can do to help their teams grow, because you're standardizing the way a TMF and ISF should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it so much easier for, any monitoring activities. The CRA comes on site, they should know the TMF pretty well. Should know where everything's going to be. And the same thing with, any inspector. If the FDA comes in and your ISF is structured just like a standard DIA model TMF would be, they know exactly what sections they should be looking at and where to find the documents that they need. So you're not going to have like this back and forth. Hopefully, you're not going to have a lot of that back and forth and trying to figure out where things are, because you're trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
That would be my best tip. Yeah.
I think we need that standard taxonomy. That way it just leaves out most of the guesswork. There's going to be a little bit of guesswork. But I think we're going in the right direction with that.
Oh,
I don't know
absolutely.
about you. When you started your career as a CRA, and maybe you can resonate with this, because like you, I was creating those paper ISF binders, shipping them to the site. And then when I wanted to learn the CRA role, my mentor and I, we traveled to the site, the same binder that I shipped. It was my job at the time to go through that binder at the SIV. And I remember being shocked when I looked at it, because it wasn't the way that I assembled the binder. It wasn't in that organization. And so I said something to the study coordinator, and she's like, oh yeah, we rearrange it the way we like it so it works for us at the site. And what an eye-opening experience. Like, I never thought like that would happen, nor did the CRA ever like mention it, but why would they? So it was like a complete culture shock, almost like, wow.
Yeah. And before I dig myself in too much of a hole there with my previous comment, absolutely. Because it is, I think, of the utmost importance that while that is my recommendation, it would be great to build that foundation and have, more of a mutually structured format for regulatory documents. Whatever a site's function and flow works best is, I think, ultimately the most important. But that also then, puts the responsibility back to, these DIA modeling conversations and we're assessing TIF and structuring, because if the sites are completely misaligned and it's not as functional or friendly, then maybe we need to make some changes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with any patient binders or anything like that too. I've heard so many horror stories from like CRAs going on site and they open like a patient binder and they're just like reorganizing how things are because they want it to flow better for them and how they're looking at it. And I'm like,
exactly.
I'm just losing my mind. I'm like, you can't really do that. Like, that's not your job to do. You need to just work with what you got. Okay.
Yeah, you're cracking me up. I know exactly what you mean. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk to us about the Clinical Research Justice League.
Yeah, so the Clinical Research Justice League was, it kind of almost started from a joke. So I'll tell the whole story. So I want to say it's early 2022, if my timing's right. Early 2022, I was doing some of those really dry trainings I was kind of talking about previously. Taking a lunch break, got on LinkedIn and made some comment to shout out at Viva Systems. I was like, hey, if you guys need any voice actors for this CTMS training, let me know. I'd be happy to do it. I was like, I don't really have any qualifications, but I read to my daughter all the time and she loves it when I do a Batman voice. And it just got like wildly popular. People were having tons of fun with it. And I obviously like to have fun too. So people were putting like Batman mask over my profile picture on LinkedIn and posting it in there. Then several people, fellow podcasters in the industry, they kept it like rolling and kept going with the joke. And I ended up taking a meeting with, one of the VPs of Viva Systems, Bree Burks. And She's a phenomenal person, really, really insightful. I love everything that company does. They don't pay me to say that. And I just kind of kept thinking to myself, I was like, what should I do with this? Because it's fun and I enjoy it. But what can I do with this concept? And I think somewhat poetically, the way I saw myself is like, if I'm going to take this clinical research Batman title and make something of it and start the Clinical Research Justice League, if you know anything about, superheroes, which I honestly was more of a Marvel guy and probably still am. So hopefully too many people don't get upset about that. But Batman in DC though really doesn't. He's a normal human. I mean, he's got like a ton of money and tech and cool gear, but he's just a normal person. And then everybody else on the Justice League actually has superpowers, like Wonder Woman and Superman and Flash. Like they all have actual superhuman abilities. So my goal and initial intention with the Justice League was to bring together these really, really powerful voices in the industry, like Danielle Mitchell of Black Women in Clinical Research, Hector Grual was Seeks in Clinical Research. These people who are like so amazing, and actually these true superpower voices to me. And I wanted to bring them all to like this shared group and shared community to try to work together instead of just having individual voices. Like maybe let's get all these super powerful individual voices together and have conversations and really try to address issues and concerns with ethics in the research industry. That could be advertising, consenting, et cetera, site payments, whatever it may be. So that was really the whole goal with the Clinical Research Justice League.
I love that. That is just amazing. Getting everybody together to talk about real world issues in clinical research.
Yeah, I was terribly busy at the time too, so I probably got in a little over my head, and I didn't have the opportunity at the time to make it what I wanted it to be. But that is one of my initiatives for this year, is to really continue to push that needle. We're actually, I filed, documents and have a website domain and things like that already. So we're making positive steps in a direction to formalize, the Justice League as a nonprofit and actually really, really, really make a strong effort to drive impact and change.
That's amazing. I love it. Now, you just released some pretty big news. Let's talk about Diversa trials.
Yeah. So on the topic of DEI, right? The SOS Save Our Sites conference was earlier this year, the beginning of February 2024. And stemming from that, I felt so connected, going to a conference like that, already kind of having relationships with everybody through LinkedIn for multiple years, many of them, having been on, podcasts multiple times with some of them, it already felt like we were almost family. So
a family reunion.
Yeah, it really was. It was getting, yeah, exactly. Family reunion, high school reunion, whatever it may be, getting the band back together.
Yes.
It totally felt like that. And it was amazing and comfortable. But the excitement and the energy from that conference and from that event continued beyond the event. And at the event, I had an opportunity to really connect deeper with Dr. Hadi Danawi. And, he and I got into conversations, and Hadi said, hey, I want to open a research site and I want your help. Like, let's get together, let's talk. And, immediately at the conference, I was already trying to connect him with people that he also already knew and had conversations with. But the more Hadi and I talked over the following weeks, it turned into like, I just woke up one day and I'm like, hey, let's do this. Like, what do you think about this? And he absolutely loved it. And we're like, okay, well, if we're going to do it, we need additional help. We need other people who are, obviously more qualified than us in certain aspects. I can't do everything. I think, one of my stronger points is knowing that I don't know everything, and making sure that I'm bringing in people who are smarter than me to work together. So we reached out and said, no way we can do this without Dr. Daniel Fox. So we brought Dr. Fox in and had a couple conversations, just kind of feeling everything out. And seeing where he was at with everything he's doing, because he's also involved in so many initiatives.
He really is.
He really is. And he was like, you know what? I absolutely love this. I love you too. Let's do it. And we started Diversa Trials. We're actually looking at hopefully trying to be able to make a formal launch by early April. And we were also dedicated and passionate. Hadi and I would be messaging it after like midnight or 5 a.m, on LinkedIn or WhatsApp. And we hustled, and we got, fortunately, we also all have an extensive background. So really putting together, SOPs and everything, we really all have a lot to pull from. So it was great. We launched early, and we're so excited. The Diversa Trials goal is we are a site management organization, but we really want to like reimagine that term, because I know like a CRO, an SMO also carries a lot of negative connotation most of the time. I know when I started in the industry, very, very negative connotations. But I've also seen the hugely positive impact of an SMO. But what we want to do, which most SMOs tend to be focused on profit, and I don't mean that in a negative way. People have to make money, and businesses are businesses; they need to run. But if you're focused heavily on profit and how we can maximize benefits and finances from studies, and that's how you're kind of picking and choosing your trials or picking and choosing your locations based off of profit, you're not going to end up in the places that are already underserved. So what we want to do, and what we are doing, is really focusing on these underserved populations, and minorities, and research deserts where there's just nothing there, no options for patients. And ultimately, we hope to be able to have this substantially diverse site management organization to where, sponsors and CROs are going to want to come to us, because, hey, everybody have to have a DEI plan now.
Right.
Which is silly, because you probably always should have. Let's be honest, that's equity in healthcare. It starts with equity in research, and that should always have been an initiative to make everybody as included as possible. But that's where we're at, and we are fighting tooth and nail every day, and we're going to make it happen.
I love this. You're onto something good when like this is the thing that keeps you up at night in a good way. And you're like messaging your business partner, they're brainstorming ideas because you're so excited. You're getting up early, you're working on those plans, just crushing the goals. Like that's what it's about.
Oh yeah. And cheesecake occasionally too, if you have Hadi. We've become such a close family, like all of us, sending, even like our children, have like interacted to a degree with each other at this point. So, diverse trials. We even have a Roblox account.
You just took it to a whole new level.
We did. I mean, I like to have fun, so that's we're gonna have fun along the way for sure.
Hey, just like the TMF, right? Too much fun.
That's exactly what that means. Yeah.
So you're speaking at WCG Magi in April, and you have a really important topic on team building. And we've touched a little bit on this throughout this podcast. So let's chat about why having a positive mindset's important when you're working in the TMF.
Yeah, I mean, we have, and obviously I can't give away all the secret sauce.
Sure.
Listen to our talk. But, the positive mindset is an ability to, like I mentioned with Hadi and Dr. Fox, we have tons and tons of fun. But we also have this like high degree of empathy with each other. And it's so important and pivotal to understand where people are at, where they're coming from, what challenges and struggles they may have. And then also, as a business owner or anybody in any management position, you should be identifying things that might even make someone uncomfortable, but put things on them that you know that they can do. Don't overwhelm them, right? I know all the CRAs that are listening are probably freaking out, like, I'm already doing too much. And I get it. I know you are. Trust me. So advocate for yourself as well, but advocate for the people that you can help bring up and build up, because that's what we need to be doing. And with the TMF, there's so many people involved in those teams sometimes. You're working in multiple studies, really trying to, I think, support each other and, finding better initiatives or finding better processes or workflows. I think a lot of times it's important as well when we work with our TMF individuals. Something I did as a lead CRA was like, hey, I want to reach out to the TMF team and see if I can get someone to join one of my monitoring meetings just to talk and share insights, because you're the experts at what you do. And if anything that you can share and help or will help, the rest of the study team with being able to support our shared goal.
What do you think, like with all these layoffs in the job industry right now, it's sort of like decreasing morale in the office. And a lot of employers want you in the office right now. Like, how do you create that positive mindset and with your team? Because all the work is sort of getting pushed down on you, and you might be doing the work of a couple more people. How do you, what do you suggest with the positivity?
Yeah, with the industry layoffs and kind of where everything have been lately, you're absolutely right. It's felt like a punch in the gut to a lot of people. I wasn't directly impacted by anything personally, but it still hurts me. Like the empathy aspect, right?
Right.
To actually care about these people. They are humans. They did have a job. It is challenging at those times. I know a lot of companies, you see, that's the other frustrating aspect of it too. As an employee, it's, okay, well then I got an email about how from our CEO or whoever it may be about how unfortunate it is and how much of a loss they feel while they're, raking in more money. So it doesn't necessarily come across the best way, but, give yourself some time, right? You have to go through this almost grieving process in the workplace. And one of the big kicks I've been on, from other individuals have really like put me onto this mindset of your work being like a relationship. And it really is. It shouldn't be much different from any personal relationship or like, dating, right? It's the same kind of aspect. And putting in effort and having matched effort. So give yourself time to grieve, process what you're feeling, and talk to peers, talk to supervisors, and as supervisors, do the same. And I really, really encourage everyone to reach out to people in their industry. There's a lot of groups and support groups online, specifically within LinkedIn to maintain positivity, but it starts in the workplace. And, I'm not going to be the one to drive change with a mega CRO. I've tried. And here I am. So, empathy to me is always first. You have to truly, truly care about the people more than maybe the money, or truly care about all the people instead of just, like a dozen or so that want, to just focus on profits and how we look at the end of Q4 financially, right?
Empathy goes a long way. It goes back to those underrated soft skills that it really just can take you so far. A little bit of empathy.
That's what I think CEO stands for, is Chief Empathy Officer. You could be Chief Emoji Officer too, and we've juggled some other ones. But.
That's a good one. That's good. Mitch, you are a strong networker, like no doubt. And I don't know about you, but I get DMs from strangers who start the DM off as, can you give me a job? What advice would you give to someone about how to network effectively.
Yeah, so that's not it.
Don't
Definitely
do
not.
that.
I mean, I understand the approach, and sometimes you need to be blunt and frank. But if you are going to send an email like that, or a message or DM like that, explain why. At least at a minimum, show your value, because everyone has value. Everyone has something to offer, whether you've been in the industry for decades or not. There's huge amount of transferable skills. Being a paramedic, specifically, we are far and few between in the research industry, but it doesn't need to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. Everybody, looks at, okay, you have a bachelor's in chemistry or something, and you have or any bachelor's in science, you're phenomenal. And if you have a nursing background, you're phenomenal. Everybody else, it's always like this, well, I don't know. But it really doesn't matter. Like that doesn't necessarily speak to your ability to perform in this industry or in this role. Those soft skills, I think, are almost more valuable than what you have education wise, because you can learn everything else. It's really hard to have someone learn how to interact with people in a positive way. But the best way to network is to start connecting, start having conversations with people. The earlier you start, the better. Really encourage everyone to try to have a voice. I know it's hard when you're busy and you're working all the time, but maybe put a block on your calendar for even just 30 minutes, to get on a social platform like LinkedIn, and specifically for our industry, and connect with people, interact with conversations. Whether it's just like a like or celebrating something or someone, those are pivotal to help spread awareness of you. But the more you share your voice, the more people understand who you are, where you're coming from, and what your values are. And that's going to be what I think really gets you a job at the end of the day too, is, hey, I already know this person, we've seen each other for years, we've had conversations in the past. So if it comes time to where you do find yourself seeking a job, it's a lot easier. And all you have to do almost at that point is say, hey, I'm in need of work. I'm looking for a job. And then you're going to have people just coming out of the woodwork, just, hey, hire this person. We've been connected for years. They're phenomenal. It just unsolicited, support. And that's, I think, the best way to network is just don't necessarily have to ask for anything. Just put yourself out there, engage, offer to help people is huge, and not everybody does that. And I get that. But it's kind of how I am too, is anything that comes up, I'm like, hey, they could use some help with that. Or like, I might be able to help with that. At the SOS conference, I saw something about Fort Kindness, and they were going to build this blanket for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so exciting and fun. I'm already going to be there early. So, hey, I'll help. It's just, maybe make it a challenge for yourself to help support other people. Those are all exceptional things that you should be doing.
You make a really good point. Like, start early. Don't start when you're ready for your job search, because that's too late almost.
Yeah, for networking, it's too late. Networking is a constant.
And I think there's a misconception where people think, okay, I've networked with that person one time and then I'm sort of done. It's an ongoing relationship that you maintain for however long you want to keep it for. And then, like you said, when a job opportunity comes up, or if your place is hiring, they're going to be thinking of you because you're constantly in the background, like maintaining that relationship and thinking, oh, they're going to be a good fit for this role.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've personally done that so many times, really over the past week or two, where even if I'm not necessarily directly tagging them in a post or something on LinkedIn, if I see someone hiring for a specific position, like at a site, I know other site individuals who might be looking for work, and if something will just click, and I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to send this to her. And it's like, oh, I actually got one back recently. It's like, oh, thank you so much. I actually don't live in Florida anymore. I live somewhere else. And it's like, oh, okay, but she used to. And like, that's kind of what I thought of initially. It's like, hey, I know someone there and this would be great. Um, that's, you're going to get stuff like that just by merely having conversations and talking with people, because they're going to learn who you are.
Exactly. So, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given in your career, and who was it from?
So research wise, in general, spoken probably more as a CRA here, the best piece of advice I ever got was pretty early on in my career, because I was incredibly frustrated with, as any CRA is listening is 100% going to relate, and probably many, site staff as well. Oftentimes from a sponsor or a CRO, you're going to get direction to do something a specific way. This is how we want it done. This is what we need. And then maybe not even a week later, a couple days later, it might completely revert back to how you had done it before. And it is incredibly frustrating. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all these inefficiencies, like, this is such a waste of my time. And, why are we doing this? And it might be a waste of someone else's money, but it's not a waste of my time. Because that advice I got was actually from my mom. I was fortunate enough to be able to co-monitor her with her a couple of times, which was really cool. It's great, like traveling with your mom, for work too. It's kind of fun. And I didn't have to expense anything myself. She took care of it. It's phenomenal. But it was this quote she gave me was, it's their cow and you milk it however they want you to. So meaning, it may be frustrating, but that like they're paying you at the end of the day. This is what they want you to do. Even though it may be frustrating, that's how they want you to do it. And it's their study, it's their project, it's their program. So, whether it's frustrating and you see something coming down the road and you're like, this is gonna be messed up. I was always very outspoken, still am, and vocal about those things where I completely disagree with certain things. And I will tell people that. It's a lot easier to do that, sometimes the more you move up through management or leadership positions, because more people tend to listen and to value your input a little bit more. Unfortunately, that's just the case. But that's really the best piece of advice I've ever been given, I think, was, even though it may be frustrating to you and you don't like the way it's done, to an extent, it doesn't necessarily matter, right? It's you're just providing a service, and that service now is defined as what they want you to do. So you do it and move on with the end of your day. Don't take that stress home,
That's very wise advice, especially from your mom. That's so sweet. Mitch, thanks so much for joining us on the TMF Daily podcast. How can people reach out to you?
LinkedIn is the best way. Reach out and connect with me directly for sure. You can follow our Diversitrials page, check out our website, www.diversitrials.com, and you can reach out to us there. But it's always easy to just ping me on LinkedIn. I'm available and I'm around.
All right. And that's a wrap for today's episode of TMF Daily. I hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of clinical trials with our incredible guest, Mitch Hilby. His insights and expertise have been truly eye-opening, and I'm sure you're leaving this episode feeling inspired and ready to take on whatever challenges come your way. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us continue bringing you top-notch content and amazing guests like Mitch. Until next time, keep striving for excellence, keep pushing the boundaries, and keep TMF Daily in everything you do. This is your host, Nicole Palmer, signing off. Thanks for listening.